Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yamuna Dira Vanachari
Yamunadira Vanachari
Yamuna Dira Vanachari
Yamunadira Vanachari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Hari
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari
Jaya Radha Madhava Ravihari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopijana Vallabha Varadhari
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana
Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana
Yamuna Dira Vanachari
Yamunadira Vanachari
Yamuna Dira Vanachari
Yamunadira Vanachari
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada.
Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada.
Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada.
Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prayvidakacharya. His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Guru Vaishnavani ki jai, Ramacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, ISKCON Founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prem se Ghosh Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giri Govardhan ki jai, Shri Vrindavan ki jai, Shri Maya Purnavadam ki jai. Ganga Maya ki jai, Jamuna Maya ki jai, Tulsi Devi ki jai, Bhakti Devi ki jai, Samavita Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai, Austin Yatra ki jai. All glories some devotees, all glories some devotees, all glories some devotees, all glories Shishi Guru and Shri Gauranga. I noticed your exit sign there above the deities. And I was thinking, if you want to exit the material world, you got to serve Radha and Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. A quick introduction. His Grace Vijaya Prabhu joined the Krishna conscious movement in 1978 in Miami, Florida. He quickly excelled in book distribution, becoming the top distributor and later the Sankirtan leader, turning the Miami temple into a leading book distribution center. When asked to serve as a temple president, he did so temporarily, continuing his book distribution work. He then moved to the Los Angeles for book distribution and initiated a successful book table program at universities. Later, he became GBC's International Ministry of Book Distribution, significantly increasing global distribution efforts. In the numbers, if we want to say, Prabhu distributed books. In 2021, alone, Prabhu and team distributed 1.2 million books.
I don't know where you got that from.
So with that, we are very fortunate to have Prabhu's association and visiting us to enlightening importance and the book distribution, how we can take it forward. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, over to you.
Hare Krishna. Om Jnanatimidandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmalitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Mukram Kotavachalang Pungam Langhayate Gurim Yet Kripa Tadaham Bande Shri Gurum Devataya Vanchakapa Tibhyascha Kripa Sindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I assume some of you had devices, yes? So we're going to read from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 7, Text 44. We have our Veda Acharya here. You got it? This is a very, very nice Canto 8, Chapter 7, Text 44. Okay. Yeah, this is a very nice verse expressing the importance of outreach. Tapyante lokatapena sadhava prayasojana para maharadhanam taddi purusasya kilatmanaha tapyante lokatapena sadhava prayasojana Paramaradhanam taddi Prusyasya kilatmanaha Tapyante lokatapena Sadhava prayasojana Paramaradhanam taddi Purusasya kilatmanaha. Anybody else like to chant? Tapyante lokatapena Sadhava prayasojana Paramaradhanam Purusasya kilatmanaha. Tapyante lokatapena taddi Tapyante, voluntarily suffer. Does anybody like to voluntarily suffer? Lokatapena, because of the suffering of the people in general. Sadhava, saintly persons. Prayasa, almost always. Jana, such persons. Parama aradhanam, the topmost method of worshipping. Now this is the only place where you find Radha's name in the Bhagavatam. The topmost method of worshipping. It's interesting that her name is there in this very important verse of preaching. Tat, that activity. He, indeed. Purusasya, of the Supreme Person. Akila Atmanaha, who was a super soul of everyone. Translation. It is said that great personalities almost always accept voluntary suffering because of the suffering of the people in general. This is considered the highest method of worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present in everyone's heart. Please repeat. It is said that great personalities almost always accept voluntary suffering because of the suffering of the people in general. This is considered the highest method of worshiping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present in everyone's heart. And you know, he mentions here, almost always. So some people are special souls, and they voluntarily accept suffering to relieve the suffering of the people in general. Almost all of them. So those who are going out preaching, you're in the very nice category of those who do go out to help. Krishna is very pleased. Purport. Here's an explanation of how those engaged in activities for the welfare of others are very quickly recognized by the Supreme Personality of God. Who here wants to be recognized by Krishna? Nobody? This is the quickest way to be recognized by Krishna. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Ya idang paramang guyam mad bhakte sovadhashyati nacha tasman manushesu kashya me priyakritama. One who preaches the message of Bhagavad Gita to my devotees is most dear to me. No one can excel him in satisfying me by worship. There are different kinds of welfare activities in this material world, but the supreme welfare activity is the spreading of the Krishna consciousness. Other welfare activities cannot be effective, for the laws of nature and the results of karma cannot be checked. So I'll gradually go through this purport. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshumalitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gadavai Naha Mukum Kurudavachalam Pangundang Hayate Karim Yat Kripa Tadahambare Sri Gurum Dinakara. So, you know, maybe some of you have heard this book called The Secret. I think it made a movie out of it all. The Secret. You heard of this? The Secret? No? It was a very popular book back in maybe 20, 30 years ago. The idea was that if you desired something enough, you would get it. Power of attraction. It's a secret. But actually, they don't know that everybody has karma. People have karma, and you can't, no matter how much you desire something, you're going to get your karma. Whether you desire something else or not, we get our karma. So this process of Krishna consciousness is about becoming free of our karmic reaction. By taking to Krishna consciousness, we become free of the karma, and by helping others also. Prabhupada said that people they just touch a book, they benefit. Therefore, when I'm distributing books, I hand the book to them. So that even if they don't give a donation, at least they touched. Because these books are not ordinary books. They're actually Krishna. And therefore, when a book falls to the ground, what do? We put it to our head. It's not an ordinary book. When we're distributing books, we're not distributing paper and ink. We're distributing Krishna. And in one purport, Prabhupada says that that Krishna, he's compared to a diamond. And the pure devotee, he's compared to gold. So we're distributing knowledge of Krishna, the purports of Srila Prabhupada. So we're not distributing ink and paper, we're distributing gold and diamonds. Very valuable. These books are priceless. Therefore, when I distribute books, I tell people, you can't put a price on wisdom. And then I give them a typical number. So they get an idea. Yeah, priceless. This knowledge is priceless. Yeah. All the wealth in the world cannot compare to one Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. Priceless. Why? Because this knowledge gives an exit to the material world. And you go back to Krishna, the Loka Vrindavan. not an easy thing to do, to go back to Krishna. Yeah. We have to have only one desire, to serve Krishna. Therefore we should live to please Krishna, to please Krishna, to please Krishna's devotees. And Prabhupada said, if you want to please me, distribute books. Prabhupada distributed books himself. Before he came to the West, he was distributing BTGs. And in New Delhi, it was so hot. You think it's hot here? Well, you all been in New Delhi, you know India hot. So, Prabhupada, he fainted in the heat stroke. And people just thought he was, a lot of bums and stuff, they just thought he was. And then one person recognized, oh no, he's a scholar, picked him up, took him to the doctor. The doctor said, you have to stay out of the heat stroke. So Prabhupada accepted this suffering to help others. We have to learn to be comfortable in the uncomfortable. Comfortable in the uncomfortable. Yeah. To go out and approach people, especially Texans, those big Texans. You'd be a little uncomfortable, you'd be a little intimidated. Yeah. Therefore, one way that devotees are distributing books now is very common ways. We set up books at tables. That's how I distribute. Actually, I've been doing it like that for over 30 years. So people come to your table. You have a sign, books, yoga, meditation. And people come to you. I have a little leaflet to get them to the table. Here you go. And they come to the table. Or sometimes devotees, they'll stand next to the table, the sign is there, and they stand next to the table. Vijaya Prabhu. You've heard of Vijaya Prabhu? Big book distributor. So he'll do it like that. So this way it's not so intimidating. You don't have to actually approach the big Texans with the big cowboy hats and the cowboy boots. And but some of them will come to you. I'll show that when we go on Sankirtan tomorrow, I think, at the park, yeah. We'll have a table. And we have any sign? Do you have a sign? No, that shouldn't be a problem. It's a park, yeah. Have you tried to set up a table before there? It shouldn't be a problem. And if they stop you, it's all right. We'll just, just set up. We set up tables at parks all over the place. Balboa Park, we have 4 tables set up around Balboa Park. So it shouldn't be a problem. Bring a table and make a little sign. Find your best artist here and put yoga, meditation, and philosophy books. Today, maybe find somebody to, sign about them so big. Somehow we got to fix it so people can see it. So, let's continue with this purport. For instance, it is by destiny or the laws of karma that one must suffer or enjoy. For instance, if one is given a court order, he must accept it, whether it brings suffering or profit. Similarly, everyone is under the obligations to karma and its reactions. No one can change this. Therefore, the Shastra says, Tasyaiva heto prayate tiko vido nalabhyate tad brahmatam uparyada. One should endeavor for that which is never obtained. Oh, there it is, okay. That's better. No radiation coming off the book. Okay. One should endeavor for that which is never obtained by wandering up and down the universe as a result of reactions of karma. What is that? One should endeavor to become Krishna conscious. If one tries to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world, he should be understood to be performing the best welfare activity. So there's so many welfare activities, feeding the poor, and sometimes when there's some natural disaster, there's so many doctors, they'll fly around to help the people that were in the disaster, But the best welfare activity is giving Krishna to others. They may be able to feed people or give people a place to stay, but after you feed them, what are they going to do? They're going to continue on in their sinful activities. And after the doctors go and they heal the patients that have been harmed, what do? They just continue their sinful activities. But when people get Prabhupada's books, it changes people's lives. They stop their sinful activity and they engage in devotional service. Not always, but some. Some fortunate souls, they hear the message of Krishna, they hear the message of Prabhupada, and it changes their life. Na yadvashcham parangarya so jagat pavitram pravinita karaj. Tadvayasam tirtam santim nayantarang saniyamanyasiksaya. That literature which does not give descriptions of the glories of the Lord, who alone can change the hearts of those who take shelter of him. It's like I was distributing books recently in the park in Silicon Valley, and I was sitting there, and some ladies and some men were behind me. And one of them said, "There's a bookstore around here somewhere." And I said, "Here's the bookstore." So they came around, "Oh, here's some books." So I showed them the books, and they took books. Yeah. The best bookstore is Prabhupada's books. Yeah. So, there's so many books. There's so many millions of books all around the world. But do people benefit from reading them? They just continue their material existence. They just continue their bondage, right? But these books create a revolution in the hearts of those persons who read them, who take them seriously. Yeah. On the other hand, that literature, which, what is it? Krishna says, that those literatures which are continue one's material existence. This is literature. Then spoke. It says, for the crows. For the crows, who are just reading for sense gratification. But these books are for swans. So what these books do, they turn crows into swans. That's our mission. A lot of crows out there. A lot of crows in Austin, right? All over the world. Billions of them. But this knowledge changes their feathers. From crow feathers to swan feathers. Become a swan-like. So that's our mission. And this stops their suffering. That stops their suffering. And they can experience inner happiness. Yonta sukhotararamas tatantir joja. One whose happiness is within, who is active within and rejoices within, he's liberated. So the real happiness is within. Because who is within? Paramatma, Super Soul. If we turn to Krishna and we do what Krishna wants, we do what the Super Soul wants, then we become happy. But they all want external happiness. Drinking and smoking and gambling and all the sinful activities. They're trying to get happiness from the external world, but no. Therefore, there's so much suffering because they don't know where happiness is. Just like the Bhagavatam gives an example of a deer who's dying of thirst and doesn't know that near the deer there's some water, but it's covered by grass, and he goes the wrong direction and dies. He sees the desert, and the desert, it looks like there's water. It's a mirage. There's no water there. But the deer sees, there's water, and dies. The water was right there next to it, didn't know. So people don't know that right next to them, there's a soul and there's a super soul. If we turn to the super soul and serve the super soul, serve Krishna, then we become happy. Internal happiness. Not this flickering happiness. Yehi sam sparsha jaboga dukayonaya evate adyanta vantakonya natesramatevada. An intelligent person does not take part in the sources of misery, which is due to contact with material senses. Such pleasures have a beginning and an end, so a wise person does not take delight in them. So we don't want an end to our happiness. Nobody wants, right? But that's the material world. The happiness comes to a certain level and then it decreases. That's the nature of this world. But in spiritual life, it's always increasing. Even in the spiritual world, you go to the spiritual world, it's always increasing. And there's a nice verse by Sudama. When Krishna went to Mathura from Vrindavan, to the great unhappiness of all the residents of Vrindavan, especially the gopis, especially Radharani. But he went to Mathura, there was one devotee there. He was Sudama, the garland maker. And he was such a great devotee that Krishna said to him, I'll give you whatever you want. Just ask. What would you ask for? Huh? Go ahead, don't be shy. What would you ask for? You're on the spot now. What? Oh, you got to think about that one. Whoa! Who's your parents? This is your father and mother? Good parents. He wants to go back to Krishna. Yeah, very good. Yeah, he said, Sopi Vrajavit, Chalam Bhakti, Tasmani Bhakalam, Tad Bhakti Susaranam, Bhute Sucha Dayam Param. He prayed for three things. Krishna said, I'll give you whatever you want. So he took advantage, three things. He said, please, Krishna, give me devotion for you. Which is interesting because he was so pure that Krishna said, I'll give you anything you want. That means Krishna had confidence. He's not going to ask for anything stupid. Please give me devotion for you. Which also means that there's no limit. He already had so much devotion for Krishna. He wanted more. There's no limit to the devotion that we can have for Krishna. That means also there's no limit to the happiness. Because the more we serve Krishna, the more the happiness increases. Right? We've all had the experience. Otherwise we wouldn't be continually practicing. Right? There's happiness here. And then he said, please give me friendship with your devotees. Which is also interesting. Because he's a pure devotee. He probably had so many friends. But he wanted the friendship to become deeper. And in the material world, especially in Kali Yuga, to have one or two good friends, very difficult. Because Icha Dvaisa Samudvaina Dvanda Mohena Bharata. That all living entities are born in this world bewildered by the dualities arising from desire and hate. So much hate, so much duality. So to have a very good friend in Kali Yuga is difficult. So we can also pray like that. Please, Krishna, give me friendship with your devotees. If we're not going to have friendship with the devotees, then we're going to look for friendship somewhere else. And you don't want to have friendship with non-devotees. Prabhupada said that when he was in New York City, a devotee asked him, why are you preaching so much? He said, to make devotees, I need some association. He was the only devotee. Imagine that. You're in Austin here, amongst 1 million people, and you're the only devotee. I mean, that'd be tough. He's in New York City. I don't know, 15 million people at that time. He was the only devotee. Wanted to make some more association, and he did. He made some nice devotees. And the last thing he asked for, very interesting. He asked for compassion. He asked for compassion. Because again, we're in this world, dualities, desire and hate, to find compassion, real compassion in this world now, very difficult. So this is something that we can pray for also. Compassion. Rarely is compassion found in this age. We found it in Prabhupada. So compassionate. He was in Vrindavan, very respected gentleman, sannyasi, so respected in Vrindavan. And he went to New York City, no respect. He's living with derelicts. Compassion. Compassion. Beautiful. If you have compassion, doing real good. There's a verse, Titikshya Karuniya Maitra Chikila Jantasu Samatvena Chasarvatma Bhagavan Suprasidati. This verse says that if we have these 4 qualities, then Krishna is very quickly pleased. Verse 1, tolerance, titiksha. And if we're tolerant, then we can be karunya, compassionate. But if we're not tolerant, we gotta cross that. If we're not tolerant, we can't become compassionate. Because tolerance, anger, how could you be compassionate if you're angry? We have to be tolerant. Therefore, when we go on book distribution, you may find that sometimes people say no. Yeah? Sometimes? Sometimes, yeah. Most of the time. But that's good, because that helps us to be tolerant. So we thank them, even when they say no. Thank you. See, this, we go on book distribution, it's a university. It's SCU, let's see, LCUC, Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan Mission. Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan University, SU. LCSU. LCSU, Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan University. You don't get a degree, but you go back to Godhead. That's better. So we learn in this school tolerance. Tolerance. And we learn compassion. Maitra, and we learn friendship. Friendship. We should go out like we're meeting an old friend. And it may be the case, because we were all in the spiritual world at one point. So we might be meeting an old friend. I mean, probably not likely, but possible. And we're all in the same family. Krishna's our father. Radharani's our mother. So we're all in the same family. You got to see beyond the body. Don't see some big Texan. You got to see beyond to the soul. We're all spirit souls, eternal servants of Krishna. Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. This is the Brahmabhuta, self-realization. Upadrasthana mantacha bharta bhokta maheshwara paramat meti chapyukto dehesmin purushapara. And Krishna says that within this body there's another transcendental enjoyer. He's the Lord, he's the supreme proprietor, he's the overseer and permitter. This is super soul. Sometimes I chant this japa. I chant this like japa. It's so important because when we're out in book distribution, try to see that there's a super soul there, our Lord, and there's a soul there. So actually we go beyond the material nature just by having that vision. Yeah. Go beyond the body to the soul, to the super soul, and pray. There's one devotee, he would his meditation was he would go on book distribution, he'd be talking to someone, and it'd be 3 against 1. The super soul in my heart wants him to take a book. The super soul in his heart wants him to take a book. I want him to take a book, and only he doesn't want to take a book. 3 against 1. But sometimes it's 4. Sometimes they want to take a book too, so that's also there. So yeah, we have to, and this all comes about by good sadhana. Good sadhana. Sometimes people ask, well, how do you become successful in book distribution? Sadhana. What does sadhana mean? Yes. Sincere practice of Krishna consciousness. Means before you go out on book distribution, we're going to be going out tomorrow, I think, yeah? We're all going out tomorrow to the park. Before we go out, 16 rounds have to be chanted. And good rounds. That's the challenge. You see, book distribution gives some impetus to chant good rounds and to read Prabhupada's books. Because I'm going to be going out there and I'm going to be meeting people. And I'm going to be trying to convince them to take a book they'd never heard of and to take their money that they worked hard for. Right? So I mean, you got to be pretty fired up to take their money and get them to take a book they'd never seen before. Right? So you got to chant good japa. Because it's only Krishna allows them to do that. So we have to hear very nicely. Read Prabhupada's books very nicely, very attentively. I'll give you an example. Imagine there's a fire in a building on the 3rd story, and there's people shouting out the window for help. And the fire truck comes, and the firemen are shouting through their bullhorns. Now, can you imagine how attentive the people are going to be? It's a matter of life and death, right? If they hear attentively, it could save their life. They're not going to go to sleep, right? We have an amazing phenomenon in ISKCON that as soon as you chant Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, people start going to sleep, right? I'm also guilty of that. But then when you chant Sarida Vijaja, then everybody wakes up. Yes? Very alert. One might ask, why is that? Why are we're chanting japa and we go to sleep? Or we're hearing and we go to sleep. Why is that? Because the mind doesn't want to hear it. The mind, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, the mind is a non-devotee. This is why we don't want to hear. And sometimes you might be reading a book and you read a whole page and nothing went in. Isn't it? The mind is thinking of something else. The mind's like, this is not so interesting. Let's think of something else. So what do? Then we read it again. It's like Bhakti Tirtha Swami. He was, there's so many japa reform classes and books and so on. But he had, what I heard him say, it was the most helpful thing that I've ever heard for chanting japa. He said when he would chant japa and he was inattentive, he would stop and he would back up 1 or 2 beats and then go forward, just to check the mind. Because the mind it catches on to something, it just goes, and then it goes on to something else, and then you chant a whole round and didn't hear anything, isn't it? Just meditating on this, some foolish thing. So I've been doing that for maybe 15 years. If I'm chanting and thinking something else, Rascal mind, shut up. And then just back up, 1 or 2 beats, and then go forward. Very good. I told that to one devotee. He said, if I did that, it'd take me all day long to chant my japa. I can't keep on backing up. But we have to be serious about our japa. Prabhupada, many times he used these 2 words, sincere and serious. But they're very similar words. Sincere means genuine. And serious means thoughtful. Prabhupada said, when you're reading my books, he told to Yamuna Devi, feel what you're reading. Don't just read it, feel what you read. Try to feel what I'm saying. So you have to kind of preach to your mind. I know you don't want to hear the japa, but we're on a new program now. If you're not attentive, we're going to chant more. All right. So this is the key to the exit. Chanting sincere japa. Kalar dosana dheya rajan asti heka mahag. Kirtanade bhakasana mukta sangha paramita. That in this age there's many faults. Wherever you look, there's so many faults. Now we have an election coming up. And they're all saying, I'll be the best president, vote for me. We have our person who makes the machines, the voting machines, right? But they're all cheaters. One devotee said, Prabhupada used to be the President of the United States. He would be a good president. But Prabhupada said no. But I could advise the president. And therefore he wanted to meet the president. I think Radhanath Swami, he met Obama. Of course, he couldn't give any advice. He just smiled and took a picture. Unfortunately, he couldn't. He wouldn't sit and take any advice. So it's Kali Yuga. Therefore, the country is for the people and by the people. Right? So we have to go to the people. Can't go to the leaders. That's not going to work. We have to go to the people. And that's what distribution is about, going to the people. And even if they don't become devotees, just by them taking a book, giving a donation, or touching a book, they benefit. Neha bikramanasosti pratyavaya nividyate. In this endeavor, there's no loss or diminution. A little advancement on this path can protect them from the most dangerous type of fear. Right? So we're getting them started. We're getting them started in this journey back to Krishna. So continuing this purport. The Lord is automatically very pleased with him. If the Lord is pleased with him, what is left for him to achieve? If Krishna is pleased with us, we made it. We made it. There's nothing left to do. Yeah? And Prabhupada said, this is the best way to please me. Krishna says, he gives a hint in the Bhagavad Gita. And in this verse also. Yaidang paramanguyam. Anybody who is preaching this message of Bhagavad Gita, he's most dear to me. So he's given a clear hint on how to please God. So if we do that, then there's nothing more that we can do that can please him. Why? Because Krishna, believe it or not, Krishna is feeling some pain. God is feeling pain? How's that? It's like a father, if he has a son, nice son, he grows up and he's a nice boy, but then he becomes a very degraded person, becomes a womanizer and a criminal and just murdering people. Imagine how the father would just, it'd give pain, so much pain to the father, right? Now imagine if there's a father that has a son like that and he has another son, that's a good boy, and he goes out to help that brother of his that became so degraded, and he turns him into a good boy again, and he brings him back to the father. He said, Father, he's a good boy again. Imagine how the father is going to be so pleased, huh? How pleased he would be with that son that went out of his way to help his brother. So that's what we're doing. Our brothers and sisters have gone off doing all kinds of nonsense. So we're going out and we're trying to help our brothers and sisters become good sons and daughters again in the eyes of Krishna. So you can imagine how pleased Krishna is. Can't imagine how pleased Krishna is. If one has been recognized by the Lord, even if he does not ask the Lord for anything, the Lord who is within everyone supplies him whatever he wants. This is also confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Tesam nityabhayuktanam yogakshemam hamyaham. Again, as stated here, tapyante lokatapena sadhava prayasojana. The best welfare activity is raising people to the platform of Krishna consciousness. Since the conditioned souls are suffering only for want of Krishna consciousness, the Lord himself also comes to mitigate the suffering of humanity. So this verse is very important. Tapyante lukatapena sadhava prayasojana. That there's no better way to worship Krishna than to go out and help the suffering conditioned souls. This is the best deity worship. Better than the head pujari. Because what happens when we go out and distribute books is we come before the Lord again, after who knows, maybe millions of lifetimes. I mean, I read Bhagavad Gita, and from reading Bhagavad Gita, I went to the temple and I saw the deities. And I eventually did deity worship. Yeah. But it began with the knowledge. I never heard of deities before reading Prabhupada's books. But I read the books. Oh, this knowledge is very valuable. And from reading the books, practically anything that came after that was good. The Dodi, the Kirta, the deities, everything, that's okay. If it's with this knowledge, it's good. Just like you might know somebody that's a very good person, yeah. And you're a very good person. Then he recommends you to another good person. Because of that recommendation, he accepts. Yeah. So, by reading Bhagavad Gita, I understood anybody that's following this, whatever has to do with this, it's good. And therefore, when I went to the temple and I saw the devotees, the devotees are so nice. What impressed me the most about devotees was their speech. Yeah. Because they're connected with Krishna. They're connected with Prabhupada. And therefore, their speech was also, they repeat whatever is said by Krishna, whatever is said by Prabhupada. There's a purport where Prabhupada says, the pure devotee does not have a material body because it is being surcharged with the current of Krishna's identical interest. Powerful statement. Prabhupada had that current. He had that current, that desire. Krishna's desire to spread Krishna consciousness. He had the desire of his guru. So he was surcharged with the current of Krishna's identical interests. And that's why this movement spread all over the world. There's one book called The Hare Krishna Explosion. You've seen this book before? You've seen this book? It's a very nice book by Vijaya Prabhu. In the 70s, Hare Krishnas were popping up everywhere. Prabhupada would go to a temple and there's already, he'd never been to the city before. He was going in South America, never been to South America before. There's already a temple there, there's hundreds of devotees. How's that? It's called Shakti. I'll tell you how it began. In 26 2nd Avenue, Prabhupada, he was preaching, people were coming. And there was one person, Michael Grant, who was a musician, and he had become initiated to Mukunda Das at the time. Now he's a Swami. So he had been visiting there with Prabhupada, he's chanting, he's a devotee, and he said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I'm going to go to India. And Prabhupada said, oh, nice, have a good trip. And he said, yeah, I'm going to go through San Francisco, then I'm going to get a trip to India. And Prabhupada said, oh, very nice. While you're in San Francisco, maybe you could start a center there. And Prabhupada just said it nonchalantly, no big plan. He's walking out the door. While you're in San Francisco, maybe you could start a center there. Okay. So he went with his wife, and Janaki, and Yamuna. So they went and they picked up their friends in Oregon, and they went down to San Francisco, and they started a center. And people were coming. And Syamasundar asked Mukunda, what does it mean, a temple? He said, oh, it's just storefront. That was a temple, yeah, storefront. So they got a storefront, and they were distributing prasadam. This was 1967. That was called the Summer of Love. The hippies were coming from all over the country to San Francisco. And many of them didn't have money, so some of them were starving practically, so they were serving prasadam. And some of them were becoming attracted to Krishna because they were having classes also. They had the 3 books. They only had those 3 books, the first canto, that Prabhupada had given to Mukunda. So many people are coming. And eventually Mukunda said, Prabhupada, he wrote Prabhupada, so many people are interested in Krishna consciousness here. I think you should come. He said, yeah. And Mukunda said, I'll send you a ticket. So we sent a ticket, a plane ticket. Prabhupada had never been in a plane before. He's 70 years old. So he said the houses look like little matchboxes. Must have been quite an experience. You're 70 years old up in a plane. I mean, generally we're young when we go. You probably had been in a plane many times already, right? So what's amazing is back then there was no security. So all the devotees were right there at the gate. So the door opened, and the devotees are having an uproarious kirtan, 50 people, 50 youth, and youth, they could sing loud, So you can imagine, Prabhupada must have been in ecstasy. When the plane door opened, Prabhupada heard the chanting, the loud chanting of Hare Krishna. He must have been thinking, boy, Mukunda's a good preacher, yeah. So he came, and there's 50 people chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. He must have been in ecstasy. This is Shakti. He had not been in San Francisco, but there's 50 people chanting. And there's a temple. So he comes off the plane and everybody's giving him something, some gift. And he's only got 2 hands. So everybody's giving him, so he's giving things back to people. He's giving things back. Receiving and giving, right? Receiving and giving. So Prabhupada was so happy. And then from there he sent out people to Germany, to Australia, to England. Mukunda went to England also, and to all over. And the movement was spreading. How? Because they got the current. They caught the current from Prabhupada. Yeah. That came from Krishna. The identical interest of Krishna caught the current. And they were spreading. The current was spreading all over the world, yeah, by the devotees. And it's still going on. The current is still going on all over the world in the form of the books. The current is here. The current is here. So we're giving this current out, and people are benefiting. Yeah. How much they benefit, that's up to them. Also, it's up to us. We should also, if we meet nice people, we should get some contact information. Now there's one devotee, Patita Pavana Prabhu, down in Houston. You know, he meets some nice people, and he has readings with them. He'll get their number, and he'll call them. He'll have readings. He'll read the books with them. They have any question, you know, so it's a very personal way to keep in contact. You have some contact way of keeping in contact with people? Yeah, good. So important. So, this is my favorite purport. You can probably see why. It's so nice. It's all about preaching. So, continuing. So Krishna comes to help. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhavati bharata abhyutanam badharmasya tadatmanam sajamyaham. If you know it, you can chant along. Prachanaya sadhunang vinasaya chaduskritam dharma sangstarpanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, is there a decline now? Yeah? Big decline, yeah? Atheism increasing more and more. Yeah, like America has so many Christians, but it's decreasing now because people are becoming a little more logical and more intelligent, and so they question. Now there's a lot of people questioning. And that's how a lot of people become devotees, because they get better answers. I grew up a Christian, but there was very few answers. When I read the Bhagavad Gita, I thought, this is everything is here. But just, you know, the early Christians, they were much more devotional than the Christians we have now. Now it's a lot of, you know, they pray for money, you know. Right? But they were very God conscious. So much so that in all the currency to this day, in God we trust. And so many churches. Prabhupada, when he first went to Butler, Pennsylvania, he was amazed. So many churches. But now you go to the churches, very few people in the churches. But Prabhupada was happy to see so many churches. Yeah. Prabhupada said that the reason America is so opulent is because it's the only country in the world where on all the currency there is in God we trust. No other country. And this is the only country in the world where we can go to public places. We can go to universities, we can go to parks, and we could set up tables, we can distribute books. And authorities don't say anything. If they do say anything to me, I tell them, I'm going to get my lawyer. And they back off. Oh yeah, I got a good lawyer. Oh, it's okay. Because we have the First Amendment right, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. And if tomorrow anybody harasses me tomorrow, I'm going to tell them, you better look out. I got a lawyer. All right. Even in India, I would try to distribute books on the campus, university campuses in India. I had to go to the president and get permission Fortunately, one person, one dean, they call them deans here, the president, she let me do it. But if she would have said no, I wouldn't be able to do it. But in America, if the dean says no, I don't care. I'm going to go anyway. Because we have the Constitution. Because of our early forefathers of this country. They didn't want restriction. See, in England, there was so much restriction. The British, the English Church, Church of England, it was very strict. So they wanted freedom. The land of the free, home of the brave. America. So continuing. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, O descendant of Bharata, and a predominant rise of irreligion, at that time I descend myself. To deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principle of religion, I advent myself millennium after millennium. All the Shastras conclude, therefore, that spreading the Krishna consciousness movement is the best welfare activity in the world because of the ultimate benefit this bestows upon people in general. The Lord very quickly recognizes such a service performed by a devotee. Prabhupada uses this word 3 times in this purport, recognizes. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So this is how to be recognized by Krishna. Now, how to do it. We're going to show you some practical example tomorrow. And one may ask, well, sometimes I go out, it was asked today, actually, or yesterday. Sometimes I'm enthusiastic and sometimes I'm not enthusiastic. Sometimes there's good results, sometimes there's not. So what to do? Why? You see, book distribution is, it's an ongoing meditation. So you don't just, and it's all about prayer. We got to pray a lot. Krishna, please help me to be an instrument in your hands. Nimittamatram bhavasavyasachan. Krishna said to Arjuna, just be an instrument in my hands. So we're trying to be instruments in the hands of Krishna. So we pray, please Krishna, help me to be a good instrument in your hand. Help me to understand these people are suffering and they need this mercy. Please help me to be a sincere devotee. Help me to think of you. You have to pray a lot. And it's not that you pray like that only when you're on book distribution. When you're also not on book distribution. When you're at work, pray to Krishna, Krishna, please help me to be a good book distributor. That'll transcend your work, Meditate, on Krishna while you're working. He said, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, and offer your homage unto me. But you'll come to me without fail. I promise you this because you're my very dear friend. So, we have to think of Krishna. We have to pray to Krishna. And sometimes it'll be difficult on book distribution. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he says, my greatest happiness is the difficulty I undergo in your devotional service. That's amazing, huh? One may ask, why? Can anybody say why? Can you say why? Anybody know why? Because when there's difficulty, you take shelter of Krishna. Vipada santata sasva tatra tatra jagat guru bhavato darshanam yatat apana bhavadarsana. Queen Kunti, she prays for difficulty. Now some psychiatrists in this country might think this person needs to see a psychiatrist. Praying for difficulty. Anybody here ever pray for difficulty? We don't pray for difficulty. People pray for money and pray for sense gratification. But who prays for difficulty? She prays like that because she knows if I pray for difficulty, I'll get the darshan of Krishna. I'll think of Krishna. So this verse says that you can either have the darshan of the material world, or you can have the darshan of Krishna. Which one do you want? We've had the darshan of the material world long enough. Yeah? So by this austerity, then we get recognized by Krishna. We get purified. We get the darshan of Krishna. So this is why Bhaktivinoda Thakur prays. You know, he says, yes, difficulty is good. Because then we take shelter of Krishna. Just like there's a saying in America, maybe some of you have heard this. Yo. There's no atheist in a foxhole. Anybody ever heard that? You heard that before? There's no atheist in a foxhole. A foxhole is like when people in war, they make these ditches. And they're standing in the ditch. And they've got the rifle there, and they're standing in the ditch. They're called foxholes. I don't know why they're called foxholes, but they're called foxholes. And they're shooting, and the bullets are going over their head. And sometimes they could hear the wind. So therefore, God, please protect me. Therefore, there's no atheist in a foxhole, because death is very close. You know, they can get hit. You know, bullets are going right over their head. So when there's difficulty, people, not even atheists, take shelter of God. Yeah. So difficulty is welcome. Difficulty is welcome. And book distribution can be a difficulty. It can be ecstatic. I mean, I can tell you personally, book distribution is so ecstatic. But it's considered to be an austerity. And it can be austere. I mean, I've also had some difficult times out there, even though I've been distributing books now by Krishna's mercy for 46 years. But still, sometimes it's a little difficult. And that gives impetus. Then I take shelter of Krishna. I take shelter of Krishna every day still. Krishna, please, help me to be an instrument, please. Accept this as an offering to you, Krishna. This book distribution is an offering to Krishna. Like today you're making some offering to the deities, some bhoga, yeah? But this is the best offering. Krishna, please accept this as an offering to you. From my lowly self, please accept this as an offering. And Krishna, he helps. Man proposes, God disposes. He'll help us. But we have to want it, so we pray. But good sadhana. So tomorrow, before you go out, good sadhana, 16 rounds. And read Prabhupada's books. I always read Prabhupada's books before I go out. Always read. I read the Bhagavad Gita, I read the Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because this inspires me. And we have to be inspired, right? If we're not inspired, it can be difficult. We become enthusiastic by this, by hearing. So, any question or comment? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the wonderful class. So talking of the difficulties, can you tell any difficult situations that you have been?
Oh,
A few.
she didn't want to hear the nectarines part. Well, actually just a few weeks ago I was distributing books, and for 2 hours no one took a book. 2 hours. So I prayed to Krishna. See, when you, for 2 hours, that's a long time. So then prayers get more intense, you know, as the time goes, you know. And then Krishna sent people eventually. So many people were taking books. Krishna reciprocates. I was in Africa recently, and I was in Botswana, Africa, and I was giving a class on book distribution. And I was explaining this, how Krishna reciprocates. And she said, yeah, I had experience. Also, I couldn't distribute a book for like 3 hours, but then I was praying so sincerely, Krishna, please. And then a man came up and he took a whole stack of books. And I became so happy. So Krishna reciprocates. Sometimes he makes it a little difficult to make our prayers a little more sincere, intense, you know, because that's purifying. Just like you put butter on the stove and you boil it, what happens? What happens? Huh? It becomes ghee, but what happens? For it to become ghee, the impurities come out, right? All that impurity comes out. It floats to the top. Or sometimes it stays on the bottom, right? Some. So that's impurities. So it's kind of, Prabhupada gives the example of boiling milk. You know? Boiling milk purifies. Boiling water also purifies the water. So we're getting purified by this activity. And it's not so austere. You know, in other ages, people used to stand in ice cold water in the winter. Wow. Feel like you become an ice cube, you know? That's austere. And then sometimes they would stand, you know, there'd be a circle of fire in the summer. Yo! He's talking about sweating, boy. He must have sweat a lot. That's austere. But in this age, yeah, chanting Hare Krishna, distributing books, this is the austerity. Not that austere. Not that difficult. You get some no's. Sometimes those no's can be a little painful, right, after a while. No. Vijaya Prabhu, he kind of makes it a positive thing. When he's first training someone up, he tells them, go out and see how many no's you can get. Turns it into a positive thing. I got 40 so far. All right, good. Go get 10 more. And then he says, all right, now go out and see if you can get a 1. Get one yes. Try to get a yes. Okay, one yes. So that's the yeah. Getting the rejection, that's probably the most difficult thing. Getting the rejection. Because the false ego doesn't like it. We want everybody to say yes and give a big donation. Right? Then the false ego will be very happy. I did big. I'm going to go back and tell all the devotees, I did huge. I did 150 books today and $2,000, you know. And everybody will be praising you. False ego will be in ecstasy. But we're trying to become free of the false ego. Now the false ego will say, no, it's too difficult. Book distribution is too difficult. But don't give up the book distribution, give up the false ego. We'll be happier. We have the real ego. The real ego wants to go out. What's the real ego? The real ego is the spirit soul. That we're the ego just means identity. Our true identity is that we are spirit souls, eternal servants of Krishna. That's our true identity. So the real ego wants to go out. False ego, nah. So we're purifying from the false ego to the real ego. Does that sound like a good plan? Yes.
Thank you, Prabhu. It's a wonderful class. So recently happened like one person, he came to me while we are distributing books, and he appreciated what we are doing. Then I asked, can you take these books? Do you have these books? Then he told, do you know, my attentive span is very, very less. I can't read the books. If I buy books also, no use. And he said, and thanks and gone. Like he's like 35, 40-year-old.
Oh.
So what you will say?
No, so what you tell him is that's okay. Your attention span is very short. So just read one paragraph. Read one paragraph and stop. Go do something else. Gradually, you'll read the whole book. One person, I was distributing books in Singapore, and the man said, you know, I want to read it, but I always fall asleep. As soon as I start reading, I fall asleep. Yeah. Anybody have that experience?
No, like, I heard one person saying something. I fell asleep, I can't.
Yeah. So I told him, stand up. Stand up. You're not going to fall asleep standing up. Although sometimes I see devotees chanting japa and they fall asleep. And even in Bhagavatam class, he's standing up, he's in Bhagavatam, and he fell over. He fell on top of the devotees, fell asleep. But generally, if you stand up, you'll stay awake. Especially if you walk. I even saw one guy, he was walking, one devotee, he was walking, chanting, and he was falling asleep. Some devotees are really tired. Yeah.
Also, one more question. Like sometimes they say that I already have some books I'm not reading, so I will pile up some more books by taking this.
Uh-huh. But then ask him, but do you read? If he reads, then I tell him, don't worry, books are patient. Books are patient. They wait. Sometimes they wait decades. They'll just sit there and wait. You know? I tell them books are patient. It's a good one. They say, no time, I have no time. That's all right, books are patient. They'll wait. Just put it in your bookshelf and it's waiting. Don't make it wait too long, but it's waiting. Many excuses. I was distributing books in Australia, and I knocked on her door, and the person opened the door. He saw I had the Bhagavad Gita, and he said, no, I'm not interested. I worship Satan. I said, oh, okay. Well, this book is about God, so you should know your enemy. He said, all right, good point. All right, I'll take it. He gave $20 to him. Took a book. Hopefully, when he reads it, he understands that actually God is his best friend and Satan is his real enemy. You know, they have Satan churches now, you know. Atheist churches. Or they even have a Google church, you know. They have a Google church now. Religion, you know. Google religion. Google guru, right? Everybody goes to Google. Google it, right? Anything else? Yes.
When I go for a book distribution, if I see same skin type, I am more eager to go and preach the Krishna, spread the Krishna conscious message. But if I see a different skin type, then I am taking it back, inner mind-wise also, outside also. So how do I overcome this kind of feelings?
Prabhupada called this skin disease. Yeah, we're not the body. That helps us also when we go out on book distribution. We gotta you actually live the philosophy. Now we hear, right? We hear the philosophy. When you go out on book distribution, you gotta live the philosophy. We're not the body. We're the soul. We're not Texans and we're not Indians. We're not Americans or Chinese or Japanese. We're spirit souls. So that's another advantage of book distribution. You have to go out there and see everyone as a spirit soul. Yeah. And when you see it like that, you become enthusiastic, and you don't feel shy or intimidated, because you're not approaching a body, you're approaching a soul, and a super soul. You can be enthusiastic, present the books in an enthusiastic way. sometimes there's some fear. Fear. Oh, what's he going to say? He might, he might snap at me or criticize me, or you know what? In the Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna says the best security is to be aware that I'm a spirit soul. That is the best security. I was talking to some Asian Americans just a couple days ago in Silicon Valley, and I was telling them this. Any of you have heard of Pascal's wager? Pascal's wager. He was a scientist back in the 17th century. You've heard of him? Pascal's wager. He was a religious man, and he said there's only 4 ways you can go. So I was telling these Asians this. God exists, and you serve God. Okay? God exists, and you don't serve God. God doesn't exist, and you serve him anyway. You serve the person who you think exists. God doesn't exist, and you don't serve God. So if God doesn't exist, and you don't serve God, then that's pretty much what many people are living now. They're living as though there's no God, doing their sinful activities, and not a big deal. There is no God, but you serve God anyway. Now, people that are religious, they live nice lives. They're respectful, and they live nice lives. Etiquette and gentlemen, ladies, people that live religious lives. So even then, even if there is no God and one is trying to serve that person who doesn't, still, they live a more decent life. So there is a God, and you don't serve God. You're in a heap of trouble. If there's a God and one doesn't serve God, then there's laws that have to be followed. So you're going to be in trouble, right? But there's a God and you serve God, then you win the jackpot. Pascal's wager. So that's our position. There is a God right here, and we're serving him. So the result is we go back to Krishna. So I was telling him like this, and he said, yeah, I guess it's a little bit like insurance. If you have a car and you pay your insurance, then you get hit. No problem, right? If you don't have insurance, you're in trouble, right? So Krishna says that. The best insurance, the best security is to be aware that I'm a spirit soul and serve Krishna. That's the best insurance, the best security. So that was I thought that was kind of funny that he said that. Yeah, it's a little bit like insurance, yeah. Some protection there, yeah.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, great class. I'm kind of opposite of Kavalnayana Prabhuji. In a way, I feel more comfortable with non-Indians.
You have more confidence?
Comfortable with non-Indians.
Oh, you're more comfortable with non-Indians?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
You guys should get together and try to work it out. Yeah.
I mean, there are certain ready-made like fast food answer with the Indians. I have these books. My father brought. I have read it. I know it. We have if you have like these 20 questions, that's all kind of keeps around from Indian, right? For non-Indian, if they don't want to take, they just tell you on face. You can explain them. If you can explain nicely, they'll take it.
Yeah.
And book distribution, even if we see the record, book distribution with non-Indians is higher compared to Indian.
Say that again?
Even if we see the records, then book distribution for non-Indian is higher than Indian.
Because they don't know anything.
Even data source,
Indians,
right?
they know about Ram, Krishna, they know, they know so much. Of course, it's a little confusing, but anyway, they know something.
Oh, I have heard it. I don't need it. So my question here is, of course, there are tons of problems. Like going out with the books is basically fighting with the problem and then going forward. So a lot of time when we approach to non-Indians, like Westerners or Americans, they're like, oh, I'm Christian. I can't read this book. I don't touch it. So the hardest thing for me has been is like, how would you, if there is a Christian who says, I can't touch this, I can only read what Jesus says or Bible and stuff like that. I'm sure you must have gone through this thing, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And
so
I have an answer for you.
Exactly. Just want to hear, your realization, your experience on these things.
So
Prabhuji.
when you come up with a religious book besides the Bible, they become defensive.
Right.
No, I'm another religion. So you tell them, no. I'm not trying to change your belief. Put their defense down. But there's always more to learn about God. That's the positive. Put the defense down, then the positive. God is unlimited, right? So there's so much to learn about God. So I sell many books to Christians with that line. We're not trying to change your belief, but God is unlimited. So much to learn about God. And then I tell them there's only 3 religious books on this planet. The Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita. I read all of them. Tell them that. You've probably read a little bit of the Quran, a little bit of the Bible. So I tell them that. These are the only 3 religious books on the planet. I learned from all of them. And it's true. You could learn from all of them. Yeah. Prabhupada would quote the Bible quite often, actually. So yeah, we're not trying to change your belief. Those are the two things. We're not trying to change your belief. There's always more to learn about God. Just say those 2 things. And now sometimes they still won't take. But many have taken with that sentence. Many. That's the best sentence. And for the Indians, they say, Bhagavad Gita, I have. So I have a Bhagavad Gita and I have a Srimad Bhagavatam. So the first thing I do with the Indians, I ask them, do you read Sanskrit? 90%, yes. Okay, let me read it. Let me hear it. Let me hear the David. And then they started reading. Of course, they're fumbling all over the place. And I tell them, oh, you're a scholar. Right? So I get them involved, and they read. I have the Srimad Bhagavatam right there. I have the Bhagavad Gita. I don't even show them Bhagavad Gita, because they always say, oh yeah, I have Bhagavad Gita. Of course, none of them have read it. Maybe 1% have actually read it. But you get them to read Srimad Bhagavatam. And then, Bhagavad Gita, this is what you read after the Bhagavad Gita. I know, you know Bhagavad Gita right, left, and center all the way through. I know that. This is what you read after.
Thank you, Prabhuji. One more question.
Yeah.
So sometime when we go out to try to distribute book, people could be a little bit challenging. It means they try to, oh, you guys do this, you just don't work, you just blah, 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 always try to stay in temple, invite people, you try to make people not work and stuff like that. And
Indians or Americans?
Right.
Indians?
I have encountered a couple of times, and I think they were American. I'm not sure if they were a typical American, but they were not Indian.
Well, tell them, hey, I'm out here working right now. I'm talking to you. This is not.
It happened in Detroit, right after COVID, and then it was like a street festival night. And I was trying to approach to people. They were like drinking, smoking, and like, oh no, I don't have time. Like I'm a medical student. You guys don't work. You guys don't do anything. I'm a big scholar, and blah blah blah. I had a bunch of book in hand and rolling, a bag. And I was like, that time I had just defended my PhD, and I just took my wallet and like, I'm a PhD in physics. I have like 20 papers, nature. I do that sometimes, and those persons, they backed up. They started listening to me, and I spoke to them like few minutes, 5 minutes or something, and most of them donated money They didn't take book. They still say we don't have time to read, but they're like, since you're monk, we'd like to donate to you. It goes to a temple. They donated. My question here is that kind of good or is bad? It's kind of sort of bringing your pride or something, your position, whatever you have, which we do not want to do, but sometimes, I don't know. Is that a good approach or no, Prabhuji?
No, that's okay. Because they're speculating. They don't know you. Now you people are just not working. No, I'm a professor. I'm a PhD. Oh, sorry about that. People are judgmental too much. And you could have said even, don't be so judgmental. We have this knowledge here. I'm also out here. This is also work. I'm out here, I'm bringing these books around. I'm offering to people. And it's valuable knowledge. And, no, that's okay. Maybe they'll feel a little bad that they were judgmental with you, and they'll, to show to apologize, they take a book and give a donation, maybe. Yeah.
Prabhu, have you come across like sometimes they say like online is very easy to me rather book?
Yeah, that's a common thing now. It'll happen more. And then I tell them, just like I just said about the radiation, you get radiation off these things. All these devices, computers, iPads, phones, there's radiation coming off it, right? So paper, no radiation coming out of the paper. I tell them better be old style. Read a book. It's better for it, better health. People are spending so much time. Actually, we're all guinea pigs. We've only had these cell phones for how long? Since 90, about 90, something like that, maybe about 90? That's only 34 years. And we're getting a lot of radiation. Now kids, 5 years old. Do you have a cell phone? You don't? That's good. Now we have kids growing up, they're 6, 7 years old with these cell phones. A lot of radiation's coming out of these things. Now they have these fives, what do they call these? 5GT or 5G. Yeah, again, people are getting the cancer around here. Phone. It hurts. If I have the phone on my ear for like 3 or 4 minutes, I start feeling pain, isn't it? Radiation. So I tell them, safer. Paper. Okay. Thank you very much. I think we're going to have another talk today. 5:30. And we'll have some more discussion. Okay? Thank you very much. Transcendental Book Distribution ki jai.
His Grace Vijaya Prabhu ki. Prabhu, can I give quick summary and thank you note?
All right.
Yeah.
You're going to repeat the whole class?
A quick summary. Prabhu, nice verse. You pick from Srimad Bhagavatam and the golden purport you have introduced to us. And the point I liked is like we are distributing Krishna, not a paper and ink, and it is a wisdom. And this wisdom is priceless when we are going and telling to the people. Also, we will ask for donation because printing and shipping cost. So, and we will, even though they are not taking the book, we are at least ask them to touch the books, so it will give the piety to them. And we have to live to please Krishna. Prabhupada used to distribute Back to Godhead magazine in the scorching heat to distribute the knowledge. And we need to learn in this way, like how to be comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. So if we do not do book distribution, if we do book distribution, it will change the lives. If we give food or anything or any health related things, again they will start doing the sinful activity. But if we do give the books, then it will transform them. And for us, we need to do good sadhana and attentive reading so that it will give to distribute and enthusiasm to distribute the books. And not only that, book distribution gives back. It is an impetus to chant good japa and read Prabhupada books. And so you quoted like 8-9 Bhagavad Gita verses. So I don't want to go through all of those. And we should study the books, Prabhupada books, with sincere and serious. And so we are like pleasing Krishna because Krishna is in pain. His children are stuck in this material world. By transforming them, bringing back to the Krishna will be very pleased. And you give an example of how like a father will be happy if his spoiled child, being again transformed to a good. And so you have answered questions, and books are very patient. It can wait. We can say if anyone they cannot take, and give up our false ego. Rather give up book distribution because it is a purifying. In this way, it is purifying. And prayer, it is very important. Nimitta matrabu savya sachi. And Krishna, we are like, use me as an instrument to distribute these books. So when we are in high difficulty, so surrender to the Lord increases. Tatra punat darshanam, like you quoted Mother Kunti's verse. So like whenever we are facing difficulty in distributing the books, or whenever any other places also, we too take surrender to the God. And my very takeaway point from me personally is the best security in the life is I am spirit soul. Oh, that's a wonderful point, Prabhu. Thank you for, you mentioned many other things. Thank you for giving us such a wonderful class. We will express our token of gratitude by chanting one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra for Prabhu. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare